The sky hung low over Riverbend, a washed-out gray-blue that blurred into the horizon as the mystery machine rattled across the rusted iron bridge. The air smelled of damp earth and decaying wood, thick with the scent of moss clinging to the gnarled trees that lined the road. Their twisted branches sagged under the weight of tangled vines, as if the forest itself were trying to swallow the forgotten town whole. Daphne rested her chin on her palm, watching the desolate scenery pass by. We always end up in places like this, don't we? In the back seat, Shaggy clutched Scooby-Doo like a living security blanket. Like, it's not our fault mysteries have some kind of creepy homing beacon on us. His voice cracked slightly as he glanced out the window. And speaking of creepy, flooded abandoned amusement park? Not exactly my idea of a vacation spot. Scooby whimpered in agreement, his ears drooping. Rhea, me neither. Velma adjusted her glasses, flipping through a stack of weathered documents in her lap. Pay attention, everyone. Riverbend had an unexplained flood 3 months ago, and ever since, Funland Park has been completely cut off by water. She tapped a highlighted line on the page. But here's the odd part, only the park flooded. The rest of the town is bone dry. Fred grinned, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. Now that sounds like a mystery worth solving. He glanced at the rearview mirror. Who called us here again? Wallace Greaves, a former park employee, Velma said. He claims he's seen things, shadows moving in the water, rides turning on by themselves. She paused for effect. And the creepiest part? He swears he saw a ghostly clown floating above the Ferris wheel. Shaggy's face drained of color. Gigi ghost clown? I was already freaked out by the sunken amusement park part, but now, Ruro. Scooby buried his face in Shaggy's sleeve. Daphne tapped her chin thoughtfully. So, let me get this straight. Flooded park, phantom sightings, haunted machinery. Sounds like a classic Scooby-Doo mystery to me. Fred nodded. Exactly. And we're going to get to the bottom of it. The mystery machine rolled to a stop in front of Funland Park's entrance, its headlights cutting through the gloom. The sight before them was something out of a nightmare. A massive wrought iron gate, eaten away by rust, stood crookedly at the entrance, its broken sign swaying on a single chain. Beyond it, the park lay half submerged in still, murky water. The skeletal remains of roller coasters and game booths jutted from the surface like the ribs of a drowned beast. Strangest of all, a few scattered lights flickered weakly among the ruins, as if the park refused to die. Velma crouched, pressing her fingers into the dry dirt. This ground is completely parched, but the park is underwater. It doesn't add up. Daphne frowned, pointing toward the Hall of Mirrors. The building's glass facade was cracked and filthy, except for one pane, wiped clean as if someone had polished it recently. Fred tested the gate, rattling the padlocked chains. Locked tight. Someone doesn't want visitors. Shaggy took a step back. Great. So, we can take that as our cue to leave, right? Velma grabbed his sleeve. Not a chance. We need to find Wallace Greaves. Fred's. One by one, they squeezed through the narrow opening, stepping onto the rotting wooden walkways that wound through the flooded park. The planks groaned underfoot, slick with algae. The air was heavy with the stench of stagnant water, and somewhere in the distance, metal groaned like a dying animal. Scooby's nose twitched. Rhea, smell something weird. Shaggy swallowed hard. Weird like mystery meat hot dog weird, or weird like haunted nightmare fuel weird? Before Scooby could answer, a sharp burst of static crackled through the air. The gang turned just in time to see the rusted carousel in the center of the park shudder to life, its broken lights flickering. Velma's eyes widened. That's impossible. This place shouldn't have power. Shaggy stumbled back. Then someone left the ghosts running. And then, the water beneath the carousel began to bubble. A figure rose slowly from the depths. A clown. His white face paint was cracked and smeared, his hollow eyes staring blankly ahead. His tattered costume floated around him as if suspended in air, and his lips stretched into a grin that never moved. Scooby let out a strangled whimper. Aruo. The clown's arm lifted, one gloved finger pointing directly at them. His voice was a whisper that seemed to come from everywhere at once. The park is still open, but forever. Then, a blinding flash. He was gone. Only the ripple of dark water remained, along with the fading echo of laughter that wasn't quite human. Shaggy clung to Scooby, his knees knocking together. Gee guys? Can we go back to, like, haunted mansions and normal ghosts now? Silence pressed in like a suffocating blanket after the ghost clown's disappearance. The only sounds were the slow drip of water from rusted ride skeletons and the occasional groan of bending metal. The gang stood frozen, their breaths shallow, as if even exhaling too loudly might summon the specter back. Shaggy's fingers dug into Scooby's fur. I wasn't the only one who saw that, right? Velma adjusted her glasses, though her hands trembled slightly. Definitely not. But illusions can be just as real as ghosts if the mechanics are convincing enough. Fred swept his flashlight beam across the water's surface. Could have been a projection, smoke and mirrors to scare us off. Daphne pointed to the disturbed water beneath the carousel. Projections don't make waves. Something physically came out of there. Scooby sniffed the air, his ears swiveling. Real, smells like wet fur, and bad popcorn. Shaggy groaned. Dude, I told you we should have packed snacks before investigating Haunted Waterworld. Before anyone could reply, a distant bell tolled. 3 sharp, hollow notes that hung in the air like a funeral knell. Daphne stiffened. Was that part of the park? Fred shook his head. No bells on the map. Velma's eyes lit up. Unless it's Wallace Greaves signaling us. Following the sound, they picked their way across a warped wooden walkway, its planks slick with algae. Fog curled over the water's surface, obscuring everything beyond arm's reach. Shaggy focused straight ahead, refusing to look down at the inky depths, until something caught his eye. That boat wasn't there before, was it? A decrepit riverboat, half submerged, drifted near the entrance to the Phantom River ride, an old dark water attraction. Its peeling paint and broken mast gave it the look of a ghost ship. Fred frowned. That should be docked at the pier. Velma crossed her arms. There's no current strong enough to move it. Daphne's gaze traveled to the ride's gaping tunnel mouth, where their flashlight beams vanished into the abyss. If there are answers here, they're in there. Shaggy's voice cracked. Guys, Phantom River. That's like naming a place Murder House and expecting not to get murdered. Fred grinned. Then it's a good thing we're the ones doing the investigating. The bell rang again, closer now. Daphne squared her shoulders. We're going in. Fred grabbed a splintered oar from the boat and pushed it toward the tunnel entrance. Scooby, Shaggy, you coming? Shaggy looked to Scooby for solidarity, but the Great Dane was already clambering into the boat, hiding behind Velma. Aria, rather not stay here. With a whimper, Shaggy joined them. The moment they crossed into the tunnel, the temperature dropped. Then, click, hum. Ancient bulbs flickered to life along the walls, illuminating peeling murals of grinning ghouls. Projected shadows slithered across the surfaces, their movements too fluid to be machinery. Velma's voice was barely a whisper. This shouldn't be possible. The wiring's been underwater for months. Scooby pressed against Shaggy. Roo, why do spooky places always have working lights? Then, laughter. Not the canned, recorded kind. This was wet and guttural, vibrating through the tunnel like it came from the water itself. The clown's laugh. The boat jerked. Bubbles erupted around them as something moved beneath the surface. And then he appeared, the ghost clown, floating ahead of them in the tunnel. His smeared makeup glistened under the flickering lights, and in his hand, he held a small golden bell. Ding, ding, ding. The third chime hadn't even faded before the boat lurched violently. Water gushed over the sides. Shaggy's scream echoed off the walls. This wasn't in the brochure. The wooden boat groaned like a dying animal as black water erupted through its rotting planks. Daphne's boots disappeared beneath the rising flood as she gripped the splintered railing. We're taking on water fast. Scooby launched himself into Shaggy's arms with enough force to nearly capsize them. RRUHOH. His paws flailed wildly, knocking Velma's glasses askew. Easy, boy. Velma adjusted her spectacles while scanning the chaos with clinical focus. The rate of flooding suggests deliberate sabotage rather than natural decay. Fred drove his oar against the tunnel wall with desperate strength. Platform. Now. The boat listed dangerously as they lurched toward a rusted maintenance walkway. Shaggy's scream hit frequencies only dogs could hear when the first skeletal hand breached the surface. Translucent fingers, woven from water and shadow, clawed at his jeans. The water's alive. Daphne delivered a roundhouse kick that scattered droplets. They're not solid. Some kind of pressurized liquid projection. Velma's analytical murmur cut through the panic. The bell triggered this. 3 chimes equals activation sequence. The clown hovered ahead, his grin stretching impossibly wide as more phantom hands erupted around them. Scooby's frantic paddling created miniature whirlpools as he scrambled onto Shaggy's shoulders. Fred's oar snapped against the platform edge. Jump! They tumbled onto the walkway just as the boat vanished beneath the inky surface. The hands dissolved instantly, leaving only concentric ripples behind. Shaggy lay spread-eagled on the grating, gasping like a landed fish. "I'd like to formally resign from this nightmare." Velma wrung out her sweater sleeve, examining the water droplets. "Fascinating. The viscosity suggests added polymers. This isn't normal floodwater." Daphne shivered. "Someone engineered this to mimic supernatural phenomena." Fred's flashlight beam traced the tunnel's arched ceiling. "That control panel up ahead might explain how." As if summoned by their discovery, the clowns' laughter reverberated through the passage, not from their spectral tormentor, but from everywhere at once. The sound cut off abruptly, leaving only the drip of water on metal. Scooby's ears perked toward the darkness behind them. Roo, roo risen. A new sound emerged, the rhythmic squeal of unoiled machinery growing louder. The walkway beneath them began to vibrate. Velma's eyes widened. "The tunnel's drainage system is activating." Fred grabbed Daphne's hand. "Run!" They sprinted as torrents of water surged through grates beneath their feet. The clown's projection flickered ahead, beckoning them deeper into the maze. Shaggy's lungs burned as he pumped his legs. Why do ghosts need maintenance tunnels? The answer appeared around the next bend, a reinforced door marked, "Control Room." Fred slammed his shoulder against it just as the floodwaters reached their ankles. The door gave way to reveal a scene that froze them in their tracks. Wallace Greaves stood amid a jungle of humming equipment, his hands frozen over a bank of switches. The golden bell sat prominently on the central console, its surface gleaming under the flickering monitor lights. "You're not supposed to be here," he whispered. Then his gaze dropped to the security feeds showing the still floating clown. "And neither is he." From the shadows behind Wallace, a new figure emerged, Park Manager Langley, grinning as he tossed a duplicate golden bell from hand to hand. "Right on time," he chuckled. "Now let's see how you handle the main attraction." His thumb pressed the bell's clapper 3 times. Somewhere in the flooded park, massive pumps groaned to life.